All right, guys, this video is going to be a little longer, so kick back and relax, grab your popcorn, and let's walk through a few things. There are a few schools of thought about Xbox's business strategy. School of thought number one claims that Game Pass is no longer their emphasis. This was somewhat originated by Christopher Dring, who in an interview, I think with his publication or publication he's affiliated with, he actually said that he was, at GDC at that year and was talking to people, and he heard that, Game Pass was not really an emphasis for Xbox. Interesting thought. There's another school of thought that claims that Xbox is more than likely positioning itself to exit the console business because, number one, it hasn't sold as many consoles as the PlayStation console. The console sales are too low. And number two, it's now moving its games to PlayStation. So this, by all means, now means that they're going to basically go ahead and abandon the console market. This is perpetuated by a lot of PlayStation fanboys. One of them is Dreamcast Guy. You can see some on the different podcasts. And I'm naming names here, okay? I'm going to be dropping names from where I've heard these things so I can cite my sources. Because usually I don't like to say names, but again, for the sake of brevity and for the sake of clarity, let's go ahead and, allow it this, maybe second time or whatever it is. Now, here's the thing. Today's video, we're going to go ahead and look and see if this is even feasible. Is it possible for Xbox to abandon the console business? And is it possible for them to not put their emphasis on Game Pass? Well, let's go ahead and start looking very carefully. I did a little chart here. I know it's a terrible chart, but just bear with me. This one is Game Pass. This one is console. This one is PC. This one is cloud. And this one is PlayStation. Okay? Now, Game Pass, from a fiscal perspective, is Xbox's bread and butter. In fact, I did some mathematics the other day where I looked at Call of Duty's revenue, did some estimates based on that $800 million a year statement from PlayStation, and then I went back and back calculated and found out that somehow, Xbox is basically grossing somewhere around $1.4 billion from just unit sales, and that's not including microtransaction and such, and hence a bigger profit margin compared to when it was netting only about 30% of COD revenue a few years previously before it acquired COD. I also showcased possible numbers from Steam sales and also Battle.net. And at the end of the day, I gave Game Pass its own $3 billion that I got from Tweaktown's report a while ago about Steam, about Game Pass pretty much making about $3 billion, which was actually restricted data that we weren't supposed to see. But the Brazilians, Administrative Council for Economic Defense, who did a report that year, kind of leaked it. So in 2021, Game Pass had done about $3 billion. So I went ahead and took the liberty to give Game Pass $3 billion in 1 year. If you look at this particular graph here and look at all these numbers, you'll notice that this green one here is Game Pass. From the numbers, it is not logical that Xbox would abandon Game Pass. Okay? So this is software sales for just Call of Duty. These are just the numbers that we have so far, right? This is just, Call of Duty from the different, sources in terms of revenue after 30% has been taking off. Now, yes, I'm sure Game Pass, after its $1 billion that Phil Spencer stated, would still be the highest. Because if we went ahead and dropped that number and say, okay, after, cost is actually taken into account and we put, say, $2 billion here, Game Pass is still going to be, the highest in terms of all of the different business ventures that Xbox has. So already, anybody that must have said that Game Pass is no longer the emphasis, well, I think they're wrong. Okay? We can simply say that. The second piece is that the console market not selling as much and also them porting their games to PC is an indicator that are going to leave Game Pass is going to need to be under scrutiny because, again, Game Pass is tied to the console. In fact, right now, there are reports, and this is from Tweaktown again. Derek Strickland wrote, Xbox Game Pass made record revenues throughout holiday 2024, indicating the subscription service generated in excess of $1 billion, the previous record. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 significantly boosted Xbox Game Pass revenue, setting a new quarterly record. Past comments indicate this record could have been $1 billion. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 helped Xbox hit a new all-time revenue high for Game Pass subscriptions and it's possible this growth could have helped Game Pass make more than Xbox hardware during the holiday 2024 period. Things are on the up and up for Xbox, at least when it comes to leadership comments. The latest holiday earnings show a $500 million decline in total Xbox platform earnings, but the downward pull was mostly due to hardware. And since hardware is sold at a loss, reductions in actual Xbox console shipments can actually boost Xbox's total profits. Interesting stuff right here. This particular notion of Game Pass being tied to the console makes it not feasible. I'm not saying it's impossible. Xbox could as well say, you know what? Let's not worry about the hardware anymore. Okay? I mean, I'm literally saying that this is a possibility, but it doesn't look feasible from any accounting perspective if we took this graph and we just showed it everywhere and say, which one should we get rid of? Almost anyone would answer, the yellow one. I wish, my kids are gaming right now. I could have called any of them. They're all little. And I could just say, hey, man, of all these ones, which one would you get rid of? And I'm sure the little kid would tell you, yeah, Dad, let's get rid of the yellow one. That's just common sense because it's the lowest one. However, it is accumulative, so you actually don't want to get rid of it. You want to leverage it, maybe grow it bigger, and give more value in it to probably see it increase. So the claim that they're going to abandon the console market is also gone because they're moving to PC. That's a done deal. Why? Because their biggest money bringer, Game Pass, contrary to what a lot of the internet believes, is actually that one thing that, is tied to the console. In fact, Tweaktown has been basically talking about some possible revenue projections about $5 billion. And if Game Pass were to grow even at the rate of $1 more billion, I think that's probably going to be it. So basically, an addition of what? Maybe about 10 more million or so subscribers. And I think it will be a done deal. They'll be making more money than PlayStation Plus, I think. Because PlayStation Plus was around 3.9 or 3.6, I can't remember, when Tweaktown was doing the revenue comparisons in that article from Cade. So now we're at the question of, what does it mean then, and why are they porting their games to PlayStation? If you notice, I didn't even bother talking about PC because they've been doing PC since 2016, but they never bothered to leave the console business, even though they were seeing a lot of success on PC. On PC, Xbox already was basically logging itself into the best games on Steam in terms of revenue and sales, right? So topping the charts every single year in terms of top 100, top 50, top 10, top whatever, you'll see it as you continue to go into the best of Steam and going onward. So this has always been a trend. So PC is not even a no-brainer. They're not going to basically take all their business and go to Steam, where they only get 70% of revenue. As for PlayStation, it makes no sense to think about this move other than a growth strategy. That is all this move, in my opinion, based on everything that I'm looking at here. That's the only conclusion that I can draw. That PlayStation is the next step for growth of these numbers to start to look like everything else, if you get what I mean. So this number in blue here, this is Call of Duty revenue after 30% has been taken away by PlayStation. This is Call of Duty numbers. This is for Xbox with 100%. This is Steam, and this is Battle.net, I think. I don't know how I did, and this is Game Pass. So all these other numbers, the PlayStation number here, which is the blue one, it's designated, and I'm sure what they're trying to do is they're trying to make this grow. Does that make sense? Because if they cannot make it grow, right, then their business is basically stagnated, of which, yes, stagnation can creep in, and some games may fail and some games may hit. But by and large, what they're trying to see here is they're trying to see these numbers trend upwards in their software sales. That's what PlayStation is there for. PlayStation can't grow Game Pass because Game Pass is not on PlayStation. And so the growth model for their software sales, and forgive the squigglies, this is just me being silly. The growth model for their games is exactly what they're pursuing right now. This is Xbox's business strategy on paper. I didn't talk about cloud. Cloud is basically an external growth mechanism as well, too, in case you were wondering. You didn't talk about cloud. Well, yes, it's also a growth mechanism because it's outside and then also tied to the console, by the way. Yeah, it's not just outside. What am I talking about? Right? It's also tied to the console because the consoles can also give you the cloud access. So for them to just pull the plug on consoles is going to be literally the most foolish proposition in the entire world. Simple. In 1 hour, a Chick-fil-A restaurant can sell 300 to 400 sandwiches. But that doesn't mean that a Popeyes, whom by any measure can't sell that much, probably will maybe push, I don't know, anyone knows about Popeyes output? Maybe you worked at Popeyes in your high school days. Did y'all ever push out 100 chicken sandwiches in an hour? I know Chick-fil-A's pipeline from past experience. They push out stupid amounts of chicken. But why would Popeyes go ahead and leave the business? Because they're not selling as much. Popeyes understands and knows its customer base, and will go ahead and appeal to its customer base. And Xbox knows its customer base and is going to appeal to its customer base. So if Xbox goes ahead and takes console offline and doesn't make console hardware, then I can then qualify and say Xbox is the most dumb venture ever seen on earth. If they did that, I would draw that conclusion because there's no logical sense as to why they'll need to do that from what it is that I'm seeing. Does that make sense? Do you guys see what I mean? If anything, there is incentive to pursue more console sales by making and innovating what has not been seen before in the console paradigm. That means basically breaking the mold and subverting all expectations like they did with Game Pass. They need to do it with the console. That's a separate video. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.